There is a question that lives in the back of many men's minds. One they rarely speak aloud, not to their friends, not to their partners, not even to themselves. It arrives quietly, often in the dimness of early morning or the solitude of late night. When the world is silent and there are no distractions left to hide behind. When did pleasure stop feeling like pleasure? When did excitement become effort? When did the body, once eager and responsive, start behaving like an old machine that needs coaxing just to function? Most men never mark the precise moment it begins. There is no single day when everything changes. Instead, it happens gradually, softening here, a delay there. What was once immediate becomes sluggish. What once surged like lightning now flickers like a failing bulb. Sensation, once electric, now feels distant, dulled, as if filtered through glass. And though the act remains, the feeling does not. It becomes less of a thrill and more of a routine. Less passion, more procedure. But he says nothing. Not because he doesn't notice, he notices every detail, but because silence feels safer than confession. Men are taught many things growing up. How to work, how to endure, how to fix what is broken. But they are rarely taught how to grieve the fading of their own vitality. So they endure in silence, convincing themselves it's nothing more than age. This is normal, they whisper internally. This is just how it goes. They repeat it until it sounds like acceptance. But deep inside, it still feels like loss. Some pretend not to care. They laugh it off. Make jokes about getting older. Call themselves washed up or past their prime. But humor is only camouflage. Behind every joke lies a memory of a time when the body responded instantly. When arousal rose, not merely from touch, but from thought alone. When climax didn't just happen, it hit with force, with satisfaction. With a lingering warmth that left them breathless and proud. Now, instead of satisfaction, there is comparison. Comparison to who they once were. Comparison to who they believed they'd always be. They begin to wonder, is this the slow decline everyone speaks about? Is this the quiet descent into mediocrity? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, the one nobody wants to examine too closely, is this permanent? Yet beneath that question lies a flicker of defiance. A stubborn unwillingness to accept decay as destiny. Something deep within whispers, there must be more to this story. Because men have always been more than muscle, more than age, more than function. Masculinity is not merely the strength of the body, is the persistence of spirit, and spirit does not retire. So before we speak of solutions, we must first acknowledge truth. Not the truth spoken out loud, but the truth felt in private. The truth that says, I want to feel alive again, not just present, not just functional, but truly alive. This is not vanity. It is not weakness. It is not desperation. It is human. And so, we begin. There comes a moment, sometimes early, sometimes late, when what was once instinctive begins to feel rehearsed. Movements, once guided by desire, now follow routine. A rhythm that used to build naturally now must be forced into motion. Hands move, breath rises, the act unfolds as it always has. Yet something is missing. Not in form, but in feeling. Pleasure used to be immersive, a wave that drowned thought. Now it feels like an assignment being completed. Familiar steps, predictable outcome, little joy. How does something so primal become so procedural? Long ago, pleasure was not questioned. It erupted effortlessly. It was wild, intense, almost uncontrollable. A mere spark could ignite it. A memory, a glance, a whisper, a thought that rushed without warning, turning the mind electric and the body eager to follow. Back then, arousal didn't wait to be summoned, it arrived uninvited. But slowly, that fire that once roared begins to flicker. At first, it's easy to ignore. A slower rise here, a slightly weaker surge there. You tell yourself you're tired, stressed, distracted, maybe under the weather. You brush it aside, but weeks become months. Habits form, expectations lower. You stop chasing the thrill and settle for completion. Not because that's what you want, but because that's what remains. And still, you do not speak of it. It is a strange paradox. The world today is louder and bolder than ever when it comes to pleasure. Everywhere you look, advertisements, movies, conversations, everything screams confidence and performance. Men are expected to be tireless, unwavering, always ready. But behind closed doors, many are simply pretending. They laugh, flirt, participate, but deep down, they know they are not feeling what they once felt. And so begins the quiet disconnect, not between partners, but between a man and his own body. He starts to move, not from passion, but from memory. He remembers what it used to feel like, and moves in the way he thinks it should. But memory without sensation is only imitation. The tragedy is not in the weakening of the body, but in the surrender of belief. When a man stops expecting passion, he stops seeking it. When he stops seeking it, he stops feeding what creates it. And when he stops feeding it, decline becomes prophecy. But let one thing be clear. This transformation from pleasure to mechanism is not natural fate. It is not an irreversible sentence. It is not the cost of growing older. It is simply the consequence of neglect of a system silently deprived of what it needs to thrive. For the body does not forget how to feel. It only waits for permission to remember. Which leads us to a truth most men never learn. Pleasure is not an emotion. It is a process. And like any process, be it fire, music, or machinery, it only performs when properly fueled. So before we question desire, before we doubt masculinity, before we surrender to time, we must ask a better question. Not what happened to me, but what have I stopped giving my body that it once had? Because if feeling has become mechanical, then perhaps the solution is not mystery. Perhaps it is maintenance. Most men believe arousal is a matter of mood. That if the mind desires, the body should follow. But desire alone is not enough. Wanting is not the same as working. Beneath every moment of pleasure lies an intricate sequence of mechanisms, chemical, electrical, hydraulic, not poetry, but physics. Arousal is not magic. It is engineering. To understand why pleasure fades, one must first understand how it functions. Picture, not romance, but machinery. For the body is more precise than emotion suggests. When desire awakens, it sends a signal from the brain, an electrical message, traveling through nerves like a spark along a wire. That spark reaches its destination and instructs blood vessels to open. But blood vessels do not open blindly. They require permission. That permission is granted by nitric oxide, a small, invisible chemical messenger that tells the arteries expand, flood, fill. This is the ignition point. When nitric oxide surges, arteries relax. Blood pours into the spongy chambers of erectile tissue. Pressure builds. The chambers swell. Veins compress to trap the surge inside. Firmness is not merely achieved, is locked. The body creates its own hydraulic seal. That seal is what transforms thought into sensation. But what happens when the chemistry weakens? When nitric oxide levels drop? When arteries stiffen from years of poor nutrition, stress, or neglect? The process does not break instantly. It simply grows less efficient. Less nitric oxide means less dilation. Less dilation means less blood. Less blood means weaker response. The system is trying, desire is still there, but the machinery is starved. And sensation, that too follows rules. Every tremor of pleasure, every spark of climax travels through nerves, carrying messages from body to brain. But nerves, like wires, need insulation, protection, fuel. When they are deprived of nutrients, of fats, of antioxidants, they dull. Signals slow. What was once fireworks becomes distant thunder. So no, pleasure is not random. It is not luck. It is not youth alone. It is circulation, chemistry, nerve integrity, pressure, timing. When all are aligned, arousal feels effortless. When even one is missing, it becomes work. Yet men are rarely taught this. They are told to be strong, but not how to maintain strength. They are told arousal is natural, but not told that biology must be fueled to function. Instead, when problems arise, they are handed shortcuts, pills, distractions, artificial excitement, temporary fixes for mechanical failures. But why treat the symptom when one can restore the system? The truth is not bleak, it is liberating. If pleasure depends on nitric oxide, blood flow, nerve strength, hormone balance, then pleasure is not lost, it is repairable. The machinery can be rebuilt, even strengthened beyond its original state. Which leads to an even deeper revelation. The foods we consume are not merely calories, they are tools. Some clog the system, some clean it, some slow the process, others awaken it. Which means this story is not about decline. It is about reclamation. The body is not refusing to respond. It is simply waiting for someone to understand how it works, and to feed it accordingly. And so, let us leave behind uncertainty and superstition. Let us replace mystery with mastery. For the system is not broken. It is simply underfueled. There is a myth that follows men like a shadow, a quiet whisper that begins in middle age and grows louder with every passing year. This is just how it goes. You get older, things slow down, accept it. It is repeated so often that most eventually believe it. They surrender not because they are defeated, but because they think they are supposed to. But what if that belief was never true? Look across the world and you will find a startling truth. Some men in their 60s burn with more vitality than men in their 30s. Some wake with natural urgency every morning, ache with hunger not just for food but for life. Their blood still surges, their senses still ignite, their bodies still respond, not like relics but like instruments kept in tune. Age alone cannot explain such differences. So what can fuel the body? Is not a candle that burns out with time, is a fire that dies only when unfed. For decades, men have been told to measure health by strength, stamina, aesthetics, but few are taught that circulation is life, that blood is energy, that emotion is chemistry. What enters the body becomes what the body can do. Not just in muscle and bone, but in passion and power. Food is not neutral. It is either medicine or poison. It either expands arteries or clogs them, sharpens nerves or dulls them, feeds hormones or drains them. Every bite is a choice between ignition and erosion. Refined sugars stiffen vessels, processed oils inflame tissues, excess alcohol numbs nerves. These are not harmless pleasures, they are thieves, dressed as comfort. They do not simply age the body, they sabotage the system. Not over decades. Over days, quietly, incrementally, until one day, responsiveness fades, and the man blames time instead of what he has been feeding himself. Meanwhile, there exists another kind of nourishment, not rare, not expensive, not exotic, simple, honest, natural. The kinds of foods that do not sedate the body but awaken it. Foods that open arteries instead of closing them. That restore nitric oxide. That fortify testosterone. That polish the copper wires of the nervous system until signals crackle like lightning once more. When the right fuel enters the body, age becomes irrelevant. A man of 60 who eats for power can outrun, outlast, and outfeel a man of 25 who eats for convenience. But this is not about guilt. It is not about shame. It is about awareness and reclaiming authorship over one's own story. For modern culture has led many to believe that vitality must be purchased in bottles, pills, or late-night advertisements promising miracles. But the truth is simpler, older, more honest. Nature already wrote the prescription. It lies in roots that color the earth crimson, in fruits that stain fingers, in seeds that once powered warriors, in ancient symbols of fertility revered long before science existed to explain why. And now, science has finally begun to confirm what history already knew. The foods of strength are also the foods of pleasure. So let us strip away excuses. Let us reject the lie that decline is destiny. Let us replace resignation with responsibility. For if the body is an engine, then performance is not about age. It is about fuel. And the first fuel on our path to revival is as humble as it is powerful. Beets. Before science gave it a name, ancient warriors already knew its power. The Romans fed it to their soldiers before battle. The Greeks considered it a gift from Aphrodite. In folklore across Europe, it was a symbol of passion, strength, and fertility. Even in old paintings, beets were placed at the feet of God's subtle emblems of vitality. Today, most walk past them in the grocery aisle without a glance. But what was once revered has been quietly forgotten. And yet, nature has not changed. Beets still carry within them one of the most potent gifts a man can consume: nitrates. Not the artificial kind used in processed meats, but pure, natural nitrates that the body transforms into nitric oxide, the very molecule responsible for blood flow, vascular dilation, and erectile strength. The ignition switch of arousal, the chemical spark from which sensation is born. Let us be clear, erections are not purely mental, they are hydraulic. Hydraulics depend on pressure. Pressure depends on blood. Blood depends on nitric oxide. Beets do not whisper to the body, they command it. Within 30 to 60 minutes of consuming beet juice or roasted beets, arteries begin to relax. Blood moves with less resistance. Oxygen travels more efficiently. Muscles receive more fuel. The heart beats with less strain. Endurance rises. Stamina extends. Performance, whether in the gym, in life, or in intimacy, lasts longer and hits harder. This is not theory. It has been measured. Studies show beet juice can increase nitric oxide levels by up to 21%. Athletes report as much as 16% more endurance after consumption. Men with circulation issues see improved response in as little as a week. But beyond performance statistics lies something more primal. Something men feel before they can explain it. A warmth, a fullness, a subtle, growing pressure that says, the system is waking up. This is not caffeine jitters. Not sugar rushes. Not artificial stimulation. This is the body remembering what it was built to do when properly fueled. And yes, beets taste like earth, like soil, like something pulled from the ground instead of designed in a lab. But perhaps that is precisely the point. Power is rarely sweet. It is raw, it is earned. So let the taste be a reminder. This is not a treat, this is a tool. One that turns blood from passive fluid into force. For the man ready to reclaim his fire, there is no ingredient more foundational. Beets are not food, They are awakening. Not all strength comes from pressure. Some comes from heat. Across continents and centuries, there is one root that has appeared in sacred texts, healing rituals, and even love potions. It was fed to kings before their wedding nights, brewed in delicate teas for warriors before battle, whispered about in old Eastern manuscripts not just as medicine, but as ignition, ginger. It does not swell the veins like beets. It does not carry the sweetness of fruit nor the indulgence of chocolate. Ginger works differently. It burns. Not on the tongue, that is only the beginning. It burns within. The body does not simply digest ginger, it reacts to it. Blood thins ever so slightly, allowing it to move faster, freer, more efficiently. Vessels relax, expanding to let that blood travel deeper. Heat rises, not as fever, but as flow like bellows, stoking a sleeping forge. To understand ginger is to understand fire, not the kind that rages and destroys, but the quiet, relentless ember that keeps a foundry running through the night. Modern research confirms what ancient lovers already knew. Ginger increases testosterone production by reducing oxidative stress in reproductive tissues. It boosts nitric oxide levels, amplifying arousal signals. It enhances sensitivity by improving nerve function and circulation. And most surprisingly, men who consume ginger regularly report stronger morning erections and heightened arousal throughout the day, without any stimulant crash. But perhaps its greatest gift is energy. Not the frantic burst of caffeine, but stable, masculine vigor. The kind that makes a man feel like his body is ready even before his mind thinks to ask. And here lies the deeper truth. Most men assume their fatigue is from age, but often, it is not age. It is stagnation, blood that moves too slowly, hormones that respond too weakly, signals that travel too dimly. Ginger does not add anything unnatural to the body. It merely reminds it to move. A teaspoon grated into tea, a slice chewed raw, a burst of golden juice swallowed in silence. It is not a flavor, it is a flicker. And if taken consistently, that flicker becomes flame. Not all arousal begins in the body. Some begins in the mind. Before blood can rise, desire must awaken. Before touch matters, anticipation must stir. And if there is one substance that can whisper directly to the brain's pleasure circuits, bypassing logic, bypassing willpower, it is not a drug, nor a pill. It is dark cocoa. Not the sweet, diluted candy bars of modern shelves. Not chocolate drowned in milk and sugar. Nor real cocoa, the kind early civilizations once worshipped, trading like gold, reserving for priests, kings, and lovers. To the Aztecs, it was the food of the gods. To monks, it was considered too sinful to consume without restraint. To modern neuroscience, it is something far simpler, a dopamine switch. Because cocoa contains flavonoids, potent compounds that relax blood vessels and improve circulation. But more importantly, it stimulates dopamine, the same chemical released when one falls in love, wins a battle, or tastes victory. When dopamine rises, touch feels more vivid. Desire emerges quicker. Reward feels deeper. What once felt dull begins to feel electric. This is why one small piece of dark chocolate 70% cocoa or higher can shift a man's mood within minutes. His thoughts sharpen. His anticipation heightens. A subtle hunger returns not for food, but for experience. And here is the overlooked truth. The body's response is only half the equation. The brain's willingness is the other. You can have blood flow. You can have hormones. But without excitement, they are wasted. Cocoa is not just fuel, it is permission. A silent signal to the nervous system that pleasure is not only possible, but deserved. taken before intimacy, or even before solitude, when a man seeks connection with himself, acts like a dimly lit candle in the mind. Not blazing, not demanding, but suggesting, let go, feel more, stay longer. And unlike stimulants that force reaction, cocoa invites it. It does not command the body, it seduces it. Bitter at first, powerful after. Just as all worthwhile pleasures are. There is a quiet metal within every man, not forged in fire, not worn as armor, but flowing through blood, building tissue, fueling drive. A mineral so essential to male vitality that its absence is often mistaken for aging, depression, or fatigue. Zinc, it does not make headlines. It does not linger on taste buds. It does not excite the senses like spice or sweetness. Yet, without it, a man begins to dim slowly, almost imperceptibly. Motivation weakens. Desire withdraws. Erections rise slower, fade quicker. Testosterone does not vanish overnight, it leaks. And zinc is the sealant. For centuries, cultures have known this without naming it. Oysters, beef, pumpkin seeds, foods rich in zinc were whispered about, not for flavor, but for effect. They were the secret meals before weddings, before battles, before decisions of consequence. Modern science has only confirmed what instinct already understood. Zinc is required for testosterone synthesis. Low zinc leads to hormonal imbalance, fatigue, and reduced libido. Restoring zinc levels can increase testosterone by up to 50% in deficient men. But beyond numbers, there is something more subtle: a return of command. Zinc does not merely restore performance. It restores assertion. A man with adequate zinc has more than just erections, he has direction. Because testosterone is not only a reproductive hormone, it is a decision-making hormone. It governs risk tolerance, confidence, decisiveness, focus. When it drops, life feels more complicated. When it rises, things feel clearer. This is why men describe zinc-rich diets not only as sexually transformative, but mentally awakening. As if some internal fog finally lifts, revealing desires they had forgotten belonged to them. And yet, the modern man is chronically depleted. Processed foods strip zinc from the diet. Alcohol drains what little remains. Stress consumes it. Age accelerates its loss. And so, slowly, subtly, masculinity weakens, not in spirit, but in chemistry. But chemistry can be rebuilt. Oysters if one craves ritual. Pumpkin seeds if one prefers simplicity. Beef, lamb, chickpeas, beans each. A quiet dose of command. No fireworks, no heat, no sweetness. Just structure, stability, ground. Zinc is not an aphrodisiac, it is foundation. And without foundation, no fire can stand.
Some foods shout with heat. Others whisper with sweetness. Watermelon does neither. It simply refreshes. Cold, tender, innocent. A fruit of summer shade and childhood memory. Yet within its softness lies something powerful, an amino acid named citrulline, named after citrullus, the Latin word for watermelon itself. Once ingested, citrulline transforms quietly into arginine, which then becomes nitric oxide, the same molecule summoned by beets. The same messenger that instructs arteries to open, to welcome blood, to expand. But unlike beets, whose effect is earthy and forceful, watermelon works gently. No bitterness, no burn, no heaviness in the stomach, no sharp spike of stimulation, only ease. A kind of silent dilation. Researchers call it nature's viagra. but that cheapens it. Viagra is a command. Watermelon is an invitation. Men who consume fresh slices or blended juice often notice something peculiar, not a sudden surge, but an extended endurance. A kind of calm stamina, not frantic, not explosive, just uninterrupted. And while beets fuel the rush of blood, watermelon sustains it. It does not push, it holds. It guards against early collapse, against fatigue midway through union. It keeps the vessel wide, the pulse steady, the moment extended. There is a poetry in that. In a world that glorifies force, this fruit teaches something different. Power does not always come from pressure. Sometimes it comes from patience. Perhaps that is why watermelon has long been served in desert cultures under hot skies, not merely to quench thirst, but to preserve life, to cool the body without dulling it, to replenish what the sun steals. And now, in another form, it replenishes what age threatens. A bowl before rest, a glass before ritual. Not taken like medicine, but like memory. A reminder that softness can be strength.
There is a difference between performance and presence. A man may rise, may endure, may even finish, yet still feel nothing. Because arousal is not only about blood flow, it is about signal. What good is hardness if sensation is dull? What victory is there in contact without feeling? This is where most advice fails. It obsesses over hydraulics and ignores electricity. The body is not just flesh and vein, it is wiring. And when that wiring degrades, even perfect circulation delivers little pleasure. Enter walnuts, humble, overlooked, shaped, not coincidentally, like the organ they nourish the brain. Rich in omega-3 fatty acids, the very fats that build nerve membranes, protect neural pathways, and ensure that signals travel sharply from body to mind. Fat is not the enemy. The wrong fat is most, and the modern diet is full of oils that inflame, that stiffen, that corrode sensation. Walnuts do the opposite. They reduce inflammation in vessels and tissues. They strengthen nerve sheaths, ensuring faster response between stimulus and pleasure. They soften the mind, not into dullness, but into clarity, stabilizing mood, lowering anxiety, increasing openness, because pleasure is not only physical, it is received by the brain. And if the mind is too stressed, too tense, too detached, then no physical action can truly land. Men who consume walnuts daily often describe something difficult to articulate. Not more arousal, but more awareness of it. Not louder pleasure, but clearer pleasure. Like tuning a radio from static into signal. Like switching from numbness into presence. And this is perhaps the most forgotten truth of male sensuality. A man does not lose his capacity for pleasure. He loses his connection to it. Walnuts restore connection, not an explosion, not a miracle. Just a gradual return to feeling. A handful a day. A quiet repair. Nerves waking. Sensitivity returning. Sensation remembered. Before pills. Before powders. Before laboratories and laboratories of synthetic promise. There was a fruit so revered that empires carved it into their walls, painted it on their pottery, and offered it to their gods. Pomegranate. Some called it the fruit of paradise, others the womb of life. In ancient Persia, it was planted at the entrance of homes to bless fertility. In Greece, its juice was said to stain the lips of lovers. In Egypt, it was placed in tombs, not as food for the body, but for the spirit, to ensure vigor even beyond death. They did not know the chemistry, but they knew the effect. Today, science has finally placed names on its mysteries. Ellagic acid, anthocyanins, and polyphenols, antioxidants so potent they repair artery walls, reduce plaque, and restore youthful elasticity to blood vessels. Studies have shown that daily pomegranate juice increases testosterone levels by up to 24% in men. Another study revealed that it improves erection quality in over half of participants, even in those already struggling. Yet numbers do not tell the whole story. Because pomegranate does something spiritual. Unlike beets, which rush, unlike ginger, which burns, unlike watermelon, which cools, pomegranate deepens. It slows the ritual of nourishment. It forces patience. One does not gulp pomegranate, one extracts it, seed by seed, ruby after ruby. A slow harvest of treasure. In that slowness lies its wisdom. Vitality is not only regained through speed. Sometimes it must be rekindled through reverence. To eat pomegranate is to acknowledge one's body not as a machine to be forced into motion, but as a temple to be reawakened. And in that reverence, something changes. Breath slows. Awareness sharpens. Desire, not the frantic urge of youth, but the steady pull of presence, returns. This is not just nutrition. It is remembrance. Of the man you were. Of the man you still are. Of the man you will not allow time to erase. A man does not transform from a single choice. Not from one beat. Not from one glass of pomegranate juice. Not from a moment of discipline or a burst of inspiration. The body does not respond to events. It responds to patterns. And so, as these foods assemble, beets for blood, ginger for heat, cocoa for pleasure, zinc for command, watermelon for endurance, walnuts for sensation, pomegranate for renewal, they cease to be ingredients. They become identity. Each bite is no longer just nutrition. It is declaration. I am not surrendering. Because whether one admits it or not, food becomes ritual. It marks allegiance either to decay or restoration, to fatigue or potential. Every man feeds something daily. Some feed their numbness with sugar. Some feed their fatigue with alcohol. Some feed their apathy with convenience. And some, the few, begin to feed their fire. And as strange as it sounds, the body notices. Not in dramatic cinematic bursts, but in quiet confirmations, morning awakenings that return without coaxing. A spark of excitement before touch. A longer endurance not fueled by willpower but by readiness. A climax no longer mechanical but complete. And beyond the physical comes something greater. Self-respect, because strength is not given. It is cultivated. Not by force, not by stunt, but by consistent reverence toward one's own potential. And soon, what started as dietary change becomes philosophical. You begin to ask, what else have I accepted as just age that is simply neglect? What other abilities lie beneath the layers of fatigue and routine? What other powers could return if I fed them properly? And that is the turning point. When nutrients become narrative. When food becomes faith. Not in myths or hype or illusion, but in biology redeemed. The man who eats with intention does not age like others. He evolves. Some transformations make headlines. Most do not. Most happen quietly, in apartments, in farmhouses, in city high-rises and rural kitchens. Not with declarations, not with fanfare, but with a man standing alone in front of a mirror and whispering to himself, "Not yet." And so he begins. Not with surgery, not with bravado, with breakfast. There is a man in his late 60s who once believed his best years had passed. He had accepted sluggishness as age, apathy as fate. But then, in the simplest of choices, he began adding a glass of beet juice each morning. Within 2 weeks, he woke before his alarm, not out of obligation, but energy. His wife noticed before he said a word. His laughter returned first, then his confidence. Then, one morning, something else returned, something that hadn't greeted him in years. A silent nod from his own body that said, "I remember." There is another, a widower in his 50s, who, after years of numbness, could not feel pleasure no matter the effort. It wasn't dysfunction, it was disconnection. He felt like a spectator in his own body. He stumbled across a study about walnuts and nerve health. Skeptical but curious, he committed to a handful each day. Slowly, not immediately, sensation returned. Not explosively, not erotically, just softly. He described it as hearing music again after years of static. And then, there is the younger man, only in his 30s, already defeated. A life of stress and convenience foods had aged him prematurely. He feared he would never feel as alive as he once did. He replaced his nightly drink with pomegranate juice. He added pumpkin seeds to his meals. He swapped complaint for consistency. And in less than a month, he said one sentence that defined his rebirth. "I don't feel old anymore." These are not miracles. They are returns. Returns to chemistry, to current, to capability. Because the body never truly forgets. It waits, for signal, for fuel, for invitation. And when it receives it, it does not hesitate. It answers. Most men wait for change to arrive like lightning. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect energy, the perfect motivation. But vitality does not return through spectacle. It returns through choice. One decision, repeated until it becomes law within the body. So let it begin not with a resolution, not with a grand vow, but with a test. One food, chosen today, taken daily, for 7 days. Not all 7, not an overhaul. Not a battle against every weakness at once. Just one. If you crave force, let it be beet juice in the morning. If you seek warmth, shave ginger into hot water at night. If you want pleasure to return to your mind before your body, place dark cocoa on your tongue, slowly, deliberately. If you lack drive, let zinc be your iron through oysters, pumpkin seeds, beef, or beans. If you seek stability, cut watermelon into cubes and eat it before rest. If you long for sensation, crush walnuts between your teeth and thank your nerves for listening. If you need rebirth, pour pomegranate juice like ceremony. Do not wait for results. Observe them. Watch the subtle changes. Does your body rise earlier? Does your breath move deeper? Does your mind grow clearer? Does touch awaken something within you? Do not chase fireworks. Chase proof. Because once the spark returns, once you feel even the slightest stirring of what you believed lost, something far more important than blood flow will awaken. Belief. And belief is not abstract. Belief is biological. When your body tells you, "I still can," your mind will respond, "Then I will." There is a myth whispered in every aging man's mind. Your best days are behind you. The world repeats it softly through advertisements, through medicine labels, through the silent way society stops looking at you. Younger men see you and assume decline. Older men accept it as law. But decline is not guaranteed. It is a negotiation. And the body is far more loyal than the mind gives it credit for. Vitality is not about being 20 again. It is not about reckless stamina or wild chaos. It is not about returning to who you were. It is about allowing who you still are to step forward. Youth is a storm. True vitality is command. It is not frantic. It is focused, not explosive, enduring, not restless, ready. The foods in this journey are not merely nutrients. They are keys. Keys not to boyhood, but to presence. Beets return the surge of force. Ginger awakens the heat beneath calm. Cocoa restores delight in anticipation. Zinc revives command of will. Watermelon teaches gentle endurance. Walnuts return sensation to silence. Pomegranate redeems ritual and reverence. Together, they do not make you young. They make you awake. Because masculinity is not measured by age. It is measured by response. To desire, to challenge, to life itself. And if your body still responds with blood, with hunger, with breath, then nothing is over. So here is the quiet truth so many never hear. You are not done. You are not past your peak. You are not fading into memory. Your body is waiting. For signal, for fuel, for permission. Grant it. Let the next sunrise not meet a man who remembers himself, but one who has returned. There will be no applause for this decision. No one will congratulate you for choosing discipline over decay. No one will see the first glass of beet juice, the sliced pomegranate on your plate, the walnuts resting in your palm. No one will witness the moment you stand before your reflection and refuse resignation, but you will know. And soon, others will feel it, even if they cannot name it. They will sense a steadiness in your presence, a quiet fire in your gaze, a renewed fullness in the way you move. They will see a man who is not chasing youth, not pretending, not desperate, but anchored, not loud, not boastful, just certain. And that is the kind of energy the world cannot ignore. Do not share this journey for validation. Do not announce it. Let it unfold in silence. Let your body speak louder than your words. Let your vitality return not as performance, but as nature. Then, when the shift is undeniable, when proof is no longer subtle but absolute, when you wake one morning and realize, I feel alive again, pause. And share it with one man who has not yet believed he can return. Not with preaching, not with lectures, just with truth. Start with one thing. It's not over, because there is no greater legacy than showing others that aging is not surrender, it is strategy, and those who learn to play it well do not fade. They forge, they rise, they endure. Your story is not closing. It is beginning again.